Hi, welcome back to another episode of Geekified. You are here with myself and you are here with Nathan. Hi, Nathan.
Hello.
We are here to talk about probably the most successful film of the year, if you want to put it in a critic's perspective, and that is Coda. It only went and won the award at the Oscars, the number one top-notch award you could walk away with, apart from Best Director, questionable sometimes, but it won Best Picture, and that was Coda. Now, this is I have finished it within the last couple of hours, so it's all still very, very fresh in my head, so I should get a lot of information out of me, even though I still will Google it. But Coda, Nathan, what did you think?
Right, I went into it a little bit skeptical. I thought it might have been I don't like to use the word sympathy vote for it, like an award for because of the idea and obviously the deaf family and stuff like that. But you know what, I loved it. I mean, it's a little bit saccharine, a little bit cheesy some bits, but really great performances by the actors in it. And I was like at least 3 times during this movie, I was bawling my eyes out crying. At the end, another bit about halfway through, and one near the start, bawling like tears streaming down my face, just bawling my eyes out, crying. Yeah. I think they did a fantastic job on it. It suggests I don't know if it'll be up there with the best picture wins of all time. Thinking maybe it wasn't the greatest year for great movies, maybe. But I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and that's probably exactly the same as I would say as well. I absolutely thought it was fantastic. Enjoyed every minute of it. And yeah, I'll go over a couple of bits where someone was cutting onions in the kitchen at the same time as I was watching it, at least twice as well. I'll go over those bits, but I think that's probably, for me, it sums up how just to tightly wrap up a perfect little film. It's one of those films that it's just so cookie cutter of what a good film is. And I think you'll have, in the next 20 years, some classes going back and referring to how well this film is put together, how well the cast are, how well it's all written, and just every single piece. It's so formulaic, but not in a bad way, because you can get that in a negative way as well.
One of the things I thought that was done really well in it is that the sort of sign language dialogue was very engaging. And I was sort of worried that was going to feel a bit forced, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I didn't think it would hold my attention, but it really did. I think it was like it's all written like almost like dialogue in a novel rather than dialogue in a movie. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I get what you mean.
It's all going to be read rather than spoken, which I thought was really quite interesting. And I mean, I think other than Marley Marlin, I mean, there's not a lot of well-known actors in this.
No, there isn't.
And especially I thought the dad stole the film for me. Absolutely stole the film.
Yeah, sorry, excuse me. Yeah, I would definitely say that the dad's performance was absolutely exceptional. That goes to a point where those onions were being cut was when at the end, and obviously spoiler alert if you've not seen it. It's not really a spoiler. It's just something that happens. It's not the worst. Obviously, she's singing and he can't hear because he's obviously deaf. And then but just holds her neck and her throat to feel the vibrations and stuff of it. And I was sitting. My tail like that.
I'm getting goosebumps. You just talking about it, mate.
It was just possibly one of the sweetest, nicest little moments that has been on film for such a long time.
I threw away my pride. I'll sacrifice for you. Dedicate my life to you. I will go where you lead. Always there in time of need. And when I lose my will, you'll be there to push me up the hill. There's no.
Yeah, that was the first bit when I was because it was her way of showing him why it was important and why it was beautiful, wasn't it? Because he had no idea, because I thought it was really another really interesting scene. It wasn't like sad or anything. That when they were at the concert. And I thought it was really, really clever the way they went to the audio with no audio.
Yeah.
And they're just sitting there looking around, talking about what they're having for dinner and stuff like that. And I thought that was really, really cool. Because at that point, he didn't understand what it was. It was only after they finishes singing and the audience started clapping and stuff like that, and he sees the joy she's giving people, is when I think he starts to realise, no, this is probably a thing.
Yeah.
And then obviously it's just after that they do the scene when he holds the throat.
Yeah.
That was the first one. I was blubbing like a baby. Blubbing.
Yeah. And then I think the other one for me was when she's doing her audition.
She starts signing it.
And she starts signing it. I was like, oh no. I was like, fuck you now. I'm gone.
No, and then right at the end when she's driving off to college, man, that bit as well, and she gets out of the car and runs back to them. I know that's like probably the cheesiest thing, and you knew it was going to happen, but it was just like, oh, here we go.
Yeah, but it's insane. It's bizarre because you would find a lot of other different films that are very much like this. You would say, oh, it's just so formulaic and rubbish. But
yeah, it is. Like, the child, she's a bit different from her parents. She's got to work. She could go to college, but she's going to work hard. She's got this cookie teacher that helps her do it, and it is quite, like you said, formulaic. But I think the subject matter is quite cool. There's that sort of underlying story about the family creating the business and stuff like that, which I thought was quite an interesting thing to add. I mean, this film had a montage halfway through, and they showed the business building and stuff like that. And it's just, I mean, fair play that a feel-good movie wins a big award for once, because there's so much death and despair and the world's going to hell sort of stuff. And then this is just a feel-good movie. I'd imagine it must be one of the lowest budgets of a big Best Picture winner. It must be. Yeah. Because there's no budget. There's no really well-known actors. It's all set in 3 or 4 locations, most of it. There's no big sweeping shots or anything like that. So, yeah. And I just for a lot of, I'm sure they're like professional actors and stuff like that, but for a lot of unknown actors to do this well in like a first big movie is pretty fun, because the brother was really good as well.
Oh yeah, he was great. Yeah. Obviously it must be so difficult to try and be an actor in the world where everybody can peer, and you have that sort of disability that's holding you back against that. But everything that he portrayed in that film, especially the scene when he was shouting at his sister, was so visceral and so emotional. And it was just it was so powerful, and he just did it so well.
I don't know why. When I was watching, after I watched it, I was sort of thinking about it afterwards, and I compared it a little bit to I forget the name of the character in Hawkeye, the deaf superhero, Sonic. No, not Sonic. You know what I mean?
Echo.
And I just thought that she was portrayed as, I thought, quite poorly for a deaf character. Yeah. And then just comparing it to this, when it's like people who don't have the powers and stuff, but they came across as really powerful people, and like the disability was a disability, but they learned to overcome it. Whereas I thought in Hawkeye, that didn't come across at all. And I thought it was quite interesting to see sort of the different way of portraying the same sort of idea,
Basically, it was one of the best bits was when they literally cut out all the sound, everybody's playing and singing and stuff, and it made you really lent into the fact of like, that's their world. They don't have any of that. Everything that they're there for, they have to sit there and do nothing and not being able to do anything.
We talk a lot. I've talked a lot before about how great Stephen Graham is with his face. And that scene with Marley, the mother, with her face, and she just looks around like, I haven't got a effing clue what's going on here.
Yeah.
I'm trying to look happy for my daughter. I'm just going to sort of, look around like this. And I thought it was really, really powerful as well.
Yeah. I think one of the other things for me, which was it was brought up quite a few times across the film, was exceptional use of comedy. The comedy in it was done so well, never over the top, never cheesy. It didn't feel like it felt like a very natural joke. I mean, like probably one of the first bigger ones was when her friend is saying that she fancies her brother and she's making jokes about her brother. And then she just comes down, walks in the room and makes signs saying she's got herpes.
Yeah.
Then he's like that. He's like, what's wrong with your pal? So she just came down the stairs and told me she's got herpes.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
And even like, the parents having sex is hilarious as well, because it makes so much noise. Yeah. It's a sort of oxymoron, isn't it? They're deaf, but they make so much noise having sex. It's just quite amusing.
Yeah, I think it's probably the fact that it's even won this award is probably going to be quite profound for the deaf community as well, because I think like the small things that I've taken away from this film is this probably things that I've taken for granted about how what they have to live with and what they have to deal with. Like they're saying, like the girl had to deal with them making so much noise in the house, and all the things that she could get away with, like making noise herself. She didn't. These are always be things that these people go through their everyday life and not really being fully aware of. It's really interesting that I took a lot of that from a kind of story like that.
Another bit I was very close to greeting was when her and the mum were having the conversation, and the doctor. I thought it was just really cool the way this thing where the daughter's the odd one out, even though she's the one that's, for want of a better word, normal. You know what I mean? In the everyday, in the outside world, but in their little world, and they did create a little like universe for themselves. That's the way they did it, and that was their way of coping with it. And her mother was just like, it was such an honest conversation. It was like there was so much power in it, and like I said, it was them signing at each other, and it's just the use of like the facial expressions, and then how well it read. I mean, I was almost crying a little bit, so I must admit, I held back there, but I was close.
So it was just an incredible film. Really enjoyed it. Like you says, I don't think it's probably not going to be the most remembered of films or of all the course of time, but it's certainly I'm going to remember it anyway. So the biggest final question is we always ask, like when we get to films like this, especially when it's an award winner of this gratitude, did it deserve the Oscar this year?
Personally, this year, last year, I would have probably given it to Tick Tick Boom. Which I wasn't sure. I think that was nominated, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. I would have probably given it to that. But I think that it was, if you looked down the list of the ones that were nominated this year, I think with the Oscars nowadays, I think because there's so much content now on all the streaming services, and they're allowing the streaming services to, as long as they get a so-called theatrical release, whether it's one cinema for one day or not, they can still get into the Oscars. And I think things like that have maybe brought forward these films that are a little bit less typically Oscar worthy. Because for me, when I was young, I remember films on the Oscars always being big epics, epic movies. And I mean, like last year it was Nomadland, even like the year with like the La La Land Moonlight debacle. I mean, it was Moonlight, and it's just like independent. And nothing wrong with that. I'm a big proponent for independent cinema. I just don't think that this year I can't think of a really like big movie that would have beat it, if that makes sense. It doesn't. I'm not saying that this is I think in other years it probably would have got nowhere near it, but not that it's not a good movie, but I think that it lacked, I don't know, it didn't feel like a best picture when I watched it.
I think this is kind of close to what I would have said as well. It's very much that cookie cutter of a movie, and it's all done perfectly. In that kind of sense, for me, it does deserve an Oscar for doing something to, like, if you had to gauge it in a percentage of how well it was to put together of how to make a movie, it's 100. It's absolutely 100. It's perfect in that sense. But when it does come to the Oscar level and Oscar performances and Oscar size screen epic journeys and dramas and all that, it's not. But I still say it probably does deserve it. It deserves the Oscar it got that year against a lot of the stuff it was up with for me. I think like Tick Tick Boom was great. I think this has probably got more. I think Tick Tick Boom is great in a theatrical sense of that guy that was in it. But I think this is probably a lot more powerful, and I think it drove home a lot more resonance, especially with the message it was putting across for me. I think it probably it picked it on that for me.
I'm not a huge fan of this thing they've done where they've expanded the number of films, and it's like 10. It's 10 instead of 6 now, isn't it? And I'm not sure if I'm a great fan of that.
I want to know what the top 6 was, not 10.
Yeah, it's 10 now. I'm sure of it. And it's like stuff like they've got to have a foreign language film in it and stuff like this, and I'm not a huge fan of that. Just put the 6 best films of the year in it and be done with it. Exactly. No matter what they are. I don't have to. I think as soon as you start putting quotas and things on art, I think it defeats the purpose of what it is. It's supposed to be a creative thing, and I'm not saying that it can't affect things in the real world, because obviously it can. But I think that it's supposed to be art, and it's supposed to be about that, not about the other stuff.
Yeah, no, I very much agree with that. I think if a film can transcend its own language that it's made in and move into across the world, then it's big enough to be awarded.
I mean, Parasite was great, fantastic movie, way back when, Cinema Paradiso. I mean, a great movie as well. Yeah. And it deserved to be in there. And that's the thing, but I don't think it should just be like a token foreign language film, which is, it sort of becomes that, I think. And I think it's got, there's its own category, best foreign language motion picture. And they're always great movies, and I just think that why does it need to go into that? If it stands its own merits, and fine, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is another one. It stands in its own merits in the thing, but I don't think you should have to have one,
Yeah. No, it would be a very different story if Titani was in the top 10 for
No, I think as soon as you get away from the French critics, then they realised, Yeah.
If you haven't seen a review on that, please go and watch it.
I can imagine. I mean, something like Titane, you could imagine something in a cinematography thing, or possibly a score situation that might work. Maybe
Pandora.
Yeah, not for like best movie or. I mean, the direction you could maybe understand because it is directed quite well, but
I'll give it that. It is directed well because I mean, how it's hard to streamline shite. No.
Your opinion's got much more extreme since we've done the review, Chris.
No, I'm kidding. I'm being over dramatic. No, it is directed very well. To get that story out of what's happening and to get from it moves seamlessly through all the chain of events. It's seamless. As crazy as it is, it's absolutely seamless. So for direction, it's one of those films, but definitely not the Pandora. That's absolutely bonkers, but crazy. Well, there you go. So that's a review of the Oscar-winning film for Best Picture, Coda. Thank you very much, Nathan.
No problem.
We can do this all day. Awesome. Wonder.